Hi, and welcome to Rick on Real Estate. I've got a special guest with me here today, John Haney from Colorado Mortgage. And John, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you here. Today we're going to talk about the cost of waiting. And if you have not been watching the news, what's been in the news is interest rates have taken a little tick upward. And you watch the news pretty careful, don't you,
every
John?
day.
Yeah.
Especially with rates.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about rates. What's going on?
You know, what we've seen is from 1 year ago today, interest rates are 0.8% higher. So October of last year, the average Freddie Mac rate that was listed was 3.91%. And today, Freddie Mac says the average is 4.71%. So it's a pretty significant increase in rates just in 1 year.
Now, I want to point out something, though. When I first got in the real estate business, back when they didn't have telephones, it wasn't really that far back, but when I first got in the real estate business, the going rate was actually 9%. So these are still historically ridiculously great rates.
Absolutely.
But they are a lot higher than they were a year ago, and that's had an effect on people's ability to buy.
Well, you know, to give you some perspective on those interest rates, in the 1970s, the average interest rate throughout that 10-year span was 8.9%. 1980s, 12.71%. 1990s, 8.1%. In the 2000s, from 2000 to 2010, the average interest rate was 6.29%. And guess what? Since 2010 to today, the average rate's been 4.47. So even though we've seen interest rates rise by 0.8% in the last year, we are still in a great rate environment. But your rate drives your payment, and with rates going up, and the projection is as rates are going to continue to go up, that's just going to eat into your overall monthly payment.
So let's talk about that projection for a minute. So if somebody, first of all, we don't believe that waiting is going to help anybody buy more house in terms of interest rate, because the rates are going to go up. But how high are we looking at in terms of where they think this is going to end?
Well, you know, if I knew the exact answer to that, I would probably not be doing this.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is what the experts are kind of forecasting, and that is next year we expect interest rates to be about another 0.75% higher than where we are today.
Ooh. So we're talking mid-fives.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
We should be mid to upper fives on average for next year.
Wow.
And these are for 30-year fixed rates.
Yeah. And going right along with that, you know, we're in still a pretty rapidly appreciating market. I mean, last month the average price in Colorado Springs was up 13.2%. We've looked at even some older resale neighborhoods, and they were still up over 10% from the prior year. And so, you know, don't believe that's going to continue forever, and we think that's going to settle down to closer to closer to maybe a 6% appreciation rate. But that's still appreciation. And so it costs people a lot of money then when they delay a purchase just because they're thinking things are going to somehow be better in 6 months than they are right now.
Well, that's right. Yeah. So the cost of waiting in this market where we still have homes appreciating. Now, the rate of appreciation may be slowing, but that's different than declining.
Absolutely.
We don't see that happening. So with a rise in interest rates and a rise in home values, just waiting 6 months, and I'm using some statistics here for El Paso County, using a median sale price of around $300,000. By waiting 6 months, a consumer is going to expect that the cost to them is going to be just over $11,000.
Wow.
Just waiting 6 months, and that's the difference between appreciation on the home, so they're going to be paying more for it 6 months from now, and a rise in interest rates to, let's say, about 5.25%. So we're not going to go to the full 5.5 or 5.75 over the average for next year, but we'll just say, okay, if we saw a 0.5 point increase, that cost waiting 6 months is just over $11,000.
So, and that's in addition to the money they're spending on renting a house in the meantime.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, $1,500 a month for the next 6 months.
Yeah,
that's not even factored into this. This is just for the purchase.
You've got another $9,000 of rent that you get nothing for. So you're really looking at a $20,000 decision to wait 6 months even, if you're in a position to buy now. Now, not everybody is, we get that, but those are huge numbers. So if somebody is thinking that they're going to save up enough money to get rid of mortgage insurance or something. What kind of advice do you give them right now, when given these kind of numbers that you're running?
Well, that's a great question. Strategic planning is one of the things that I will do with every single one of my clients, because making a decision of putting 5%, 10%, or 20% down on a home, it's a big decision. It not only affects short-term financial goals, it affects long-term financial goals. And where we're in a market where we're still seeing great appreciation, oftentimes I'm going to recommend normally that maybe a lower down payment strategy could meet those short-term and longer-term financial goals, with maybe having mortgage insurance as a temporary thing that you're adding to your loan. Ultimately, the end game is going to be to eliminate that mortgage insurance, but in a market like this where we've got rising interest rates and rising appreciation, having a strategy in place to tackle that can make a big difference.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us today, John. Really appreciate it. And this is another episode of Rick on Real Estate. Thanks for joining us.